Crosschoke, a TFL Ministries podcast, is brought to you by you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/TFL Ministries.
Yeah, it's the cross. Jesus went to that cross, and he took the stripes, and he took the nails, and he bore all those things for us. 3 days later, up from the grave, he arose. 3 days later, he rose as King of Kings and as Lord of Lords.
Good morning, y'all.
Good morning, y'all.
What are you doing over there?
Having some of those kettle-cooked chips, barbecue.
Kettle cooked, just like Grandma used to make.
We just were talking about, doesn't it just make you want to just hurt somebody when you hear chewing?
Makes me want to put somebody in a submission.
Just like, I don't even want to be that nice. I want to do like a flying
Monkey.
side, like a flying karate kick across the room right in their mouth.
Oh,
Is that a phobia of chewing?
getting kicked in the mouth?
No. You're just paranoid about chewing. Somebody's going to kick me. I know it. But, there's phobias of everything. But can you have a phobia of the sound of chewing?
Oh, guaranteed.
I bet I'm on that spectrum.
There's a phobia on that same thought of like ASMR, where like those types of noises make your skin crawl. Are you that kind of person?
What's ASMR?
It's like when people whisper.
Yes.
And like
whispering bothers me. If somebody whispers
like,
to me, I'm like,
crinkle a water bottle into the microphone and stuff like that.
I'm okay there.
Okay.
Whispering in my ear, like, I don't even care what you're saying anymore.
Even if they're sweet nothings?
Kind of. It really, yeah. I don't get many sweet nothings whispered in my ear these days.
Sweet nothing.
Oh, Dakota, what have you been up to, man?
I've been playing Super Mario Odyssey with my wife. Highly recommend it.
No, you've told me before you beat it, technically, the story.
Yeah, we beat the story.
And now you're going back and...
Well, once you beat the story, there's a whole bunch of bonus content. More than double the story content.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's just so much.
Like side mission stuff that you unlock, basically?
Yeah, side missions, getting all... Like, completing it to 100%, I think, is going to take, 200 hours.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you doing, one planet at a time?
We can't even do that much
in,
a sitting. It takes a while.
But it's fun.
It's so fun. It's a great one-player game alone, but the two-player mode, as you know, is just fantastic. It's groundbreaking.
You wouldn't think, though.
Yeah, the premise.
I remember when you and I were playing it together for the first time, and I let you be Mario, and I was Cappy, right, his hat, and it just sounds so lame. I'll be Cappy, the little stupid hat that follows you. But it's awesome. It works together so well, and some of it is really difficult to do without a second person.
It's true.
Well, that's fun. I just beat The Last of Us a couple days ago.
Yeah.
The Last of Us Part 2. It took me 31 hours.
Wow.
To complete it.
There you go.
I wish I would have been able to sit down in a couple less settings than I beat it in probably 20 chunks.
Yeah.
I wish I would have been able to do it in 3, but I just never had, 3 10-hour chunks.
I mean, who needs to sleep?
I'm getting there. I'm trying to sleep less, actually. I'm kidding.
That's my motto.
I've been taking naps. It's really weird for me, but I've been really benefiting.
You're getting to that age, huh?
Yeah, 26 going on 45. But no, I've been taking half hour, 20 hour
20-hour naps with a half-hour nap in between.
Yeah, I got a nap from my naps, but no, I've been taking half hour to 20-minute naps about midday when I get off work and before I go to the academy. It's actually been really nice. I find way more energy for the afternoon.
You ever thought about how that disproves evolution?
Napping?
Yeah, if if we could evolve and keep getting better, why hasn't our body adjusted to just needing a couple hours of sleep a day? Like, why are our bodies so lame that we still need 8 hours of sleep?
Yeah, haven't we evolved past this lameness?
Yeah, it's been a million years.
Yeah. That's an interesting perspective. I don't know. I haven't looked into that, like the scientific way to argue that, but
We could start it.
right now, let me just open up Google.
Let's call Degrassi Tyson right now.
I don't know who that is, but
He's a really famous scientist.
oh, like you.
Not to be confused with Mike Tyson.
Also a famous scientist.
Yeah. The science of punching people in the mouth.
It is a science. You ever heard, what was that, what is that actress's name when she goes, and the mixed martial arts, which are not the arts. It was like at the Emmys or Golden Globes or something like that.
Are not the art. She didn't think it was an art?
No, she was just bashing mixed martial arts. What the heck is her name? She's in River Wild with Kevin Bacon.
Who? No, I'm just kidding.
We're just like Kevin Bacon. From our family to yours, Family Roots Restaurant in the heart of Uptown Butte offers quality food from scratch at affordable prices. With prime rib starting at 5 p.m. every Friday and Saturday, and desserts like cheesecake, pies, cakes, and gluten-free options, there is certainly something at Family Roots to satisfy your cravings. Dine-in, pickup, curbside, and delivery available Wednesday through Sunday. Check out their Facebook page at The Family Roots to stay up to date on any specials, desserts, and homemade soups. Family Roots Restaurant. You are listening to Cross Choke. Remember, you can get early ad-free access over on patreon.com. Also gain access to exclusive content like Cross Choke Plus and Cross Punch. You can support us over there for $3, $5, or $10 a month, all with their own benefits and perks. Dakota, you recorded our second episode of Cross Choke Plus last week. Want to share just a little bit about that?
Sure. So to our Patreon listeners, they got exclusive content into a short story that I shared about my life, and we related that to Star Wars in context, as well as the story of Jacob and the promises of God.
And you did a phenomenal job.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
I really enjoyed uploading it. I listened to it 2 times. And,
wow.
Because the first time I listened through it and just kind of tried to get some notes for the post.
Sure.
And then ended up listening to it another time just because it was great. So.
Oh, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, you did a super good job. I highly, highly recommend going and listening to that. Again, you can gain access to Crosschoke Plus for just $3 a month. Help support TFL and Crosschoke to put back into our equipment, and we are really in need of a soundboard or something because we're outgrowing our octopus cords into my Mac right now.
Yeah.
If you could see this, we're making it work.
We'll put a picture on the Patreon.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. So, anyways, feel free to go there and support us. Now, Dakota, we are doing things a little out of order on purpose today because I thought this would be pretty fun.
Can he get the submission? He's got it. He can submit by submission. That's it. Go!
We introduced an official segment last week.
Yeah.
If that's kind of a fun reference to the bloopers. It's new and it's official and it's new. Submission of the week, where we give time to a mailbag sort of thing. Ask me anything. Questions, things like that. And we had a great discussion about waffles and pancakes, which continued through the week, actually. And I don't know if you saw the poll that I put on my Instagram or Facebook.
Yes.
Waffles,
I participated.
Oh, very good. Waffles officially won by 1 vote.
That's crazy. Because when I had voted, it was 50%.
Both? Yeah. You sent me a screenshot of it, actually. Yeah, so waffles edged ahead, but I think in the scientific realm, since we're trying to act like scientists today, that's not conclusive enough.
No.
It needs to be by a margin of 10% or something, or whatever that.
And we need different
is.
people groups.
Different people groups, and I don't know. I might have influenced the test somehow. I don't know. I made the picture of waffles look really appealing, and the pancakes were black and white. I'm just kidding. They weren't. They were pretty even.
So submission of the week shouldn't be confused with me learning a new submission and putting Zach in the chokehold.
Depends on if that's the question that's submitted. Black Belt King 15 wrote into us on patreon.com/TFL Ministries, just like you can, and said, "Hi guys, I'm wondering if you could talk about the importance of Jesus' divinity on earth. Specifically, what would the gospel look like had Jesus not been divine? And why is it important? Could he have stepped out of his divinity for a season?" So, thoughts on this, Dakota?
Okay, so first let's talk about what divinity is.
Sure.
So, in your own thoughts, can you tell me like the divinity of Jesus?
So, him being divine is kind of the idea. His divinity is
Like holy?
Is a fundamental idea of him being fully God.
Right,
God is
okay.
divine. He is apart. He is holy. Holy is basically God is set apart. We are to be set
So-
apart as he is. So being divine, in my idea, is he's possessing the full nature of God.
Right.
Is
Fully God, fully man.
Fully God, fully man is the idea of his
So
divinity.
we're saying God goes like Black Panther and drinks that thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then loses his powers.
That's
right?
basically it. Is
Okay.
when Jesus was on earth, was he still divine? Is, I
Okay.
think, basically the premise of the question.
Had he not been divine, had he not performed miracles and healed the sick, I feel as if he would have been looked at as just another prophet,
That's
as
just
so
it.
many other religions view him as.
His
his
just as another
divinity-
man.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people do think that he is just another man.
And that's one of the fundamental things that sets apart Christianity.
Yeah.
Is he was God.
Yeah,
in
and he's proven
bodily
that.
form.
There's
Yeah.
documents, there's letters, there's firsthand accounts of
Mm-hmm.
him proving his divinity.
And that's
and,
that's
and
the
not that
thing.
he had to, but he did.
That's it too. Yeah, otherwise how could he have done the miracles he did? You know, how could
Mm-hmm.
he why would the gospels be recorded as they are? You know, why would even the whole Bible wrap around this idea of God becoming man, dying
Yeah.
the death that we should have in our place if he wasn't who he said he was? And a couple verses that I thought of in this, you know, is Colossians 2:9, and it basically just totally nails what we're talking about. The NLT version goes, "For in Christ lives all the fullness of God in a human body." Right? I mean, that just nails it right there. And I like the New American Standard Bible. That's kind of the version I've been reading lately. And it says it, "For in him all the fullness of deity dwells in bodily form."
That's
You know,
good.
yeah, and it's just such a crucial aspect of Christianity.
Yeah.
You know, that Jesus, like we said, possesses the fullness of God, the fullness of a divine nature, and which is referring to his deity. That's kind of that definition that we talked about.
Yeah.
And that is the reality of his incarnation. And that's kind of a big, gigantic church word. But
Sure.
God incarnate
Yep.
is Jesus, right? The incarnation, it's God becoming man and dwelling among us.
I did want to answer the submission's last question about Jesus stepping out of his divinity for a season.
Yeah, go ahead.
I really think that he did do that.
That he did what?
Stepped out of his divinity. If not in whole, but physically, he separated himself when he fasted for 40 days and 40 nights. Specifically so that he could have that same toll and knowledge and experience that we do as humans. And he was tempted. Like, do you think God is ever tempted?
Right.
But he was tempted.
Well, that was the whole point of him being a baby, being a man,
Yeah.
all the way through. Is he's relatable? We've talked about that
Yeah.
before, for sure. That
Would that be considered stepping out of divinity? Like
Well,
he takes off his divinity hat, puts on his human hat?
well, I think that is him being human, but even when he was a baby, he was still fully God.
Right.
You know, when
But was he fully divine as a baby?
was he fully knowledgeable of his divinity? I think that's the question,
Yeah.
and I don't think so. As a baby, I don't know. The Bible's not clear on that.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But it is clear when they did the pilgrimage and Jesus stayed at the temple and his parents left and they were all
Yeah.
worried and then they went back. and we're like, hey, where were you? And he goes, I was at my father's house.
Yeah.
That's the first
He knew
instance when we know he knew.
Yeah.
You know, he knew at that point who he was.
Yeah, he may have always known.
You know, I don't know. But if he was truly a baby, you know, try to remember the first time you remembered.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's
Yesterday.
yeah. You know, it's a fun topic, but it is an act of love that I don't necessarily think Jesus left his divinity,
Sure.
but he left eternity
Yeah.
and was physically present as a full grown man.
Yeah.
You know. So
I think he got as close as possible on purpose in that moment specifically, just so that he could experience it.
totally agree. Good question. Hopefully that gives some shed some light on the subject. A couple verses that I wanted to read to maybe wrap up that question. Philippians 2:5-11 goes like this: have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, although he existed in the form of God, did not regard equality with God as a thing to be grasped, but he emptied himself, taking the form of a bondservant, and being made in the likeness of men. Being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to the point of death, even death on a cross. So for this reason also, God highly exalted him and bestowed on him the name which is above every name, so that at the name of Jesus every knee will bow, of those who are in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord. So to the glory of God the Father. Mm-hmm. And what an encompassing mission of God, him becoming man,
Yeah.
the purpose of it all, that he could have easily, like, you know, shook the salt in front of your face of I'm God, right?
Yeah.
And even when he was on the cross, it said he could have called a legion of angels.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But he chose not to because he wanted to be the sacrifice and fulfill the whole reason for him being man.
It's such a pillar of Christianity that it's no wonder that other religions try so hard to take it down.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always in question. Was Jesus God?
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically the question.
Yeah,
that's
because
being
if he
asked.
wasn't, Christianity
Is it the biggest
is
waste
nothing.
of time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, good question.
Submission from Mr. Rodriguez, who wrote into us on patreon.com/TFL Ministries, and he asks, how hard is it to execute an Imanari roll into a heel hook? And specifically, how do you position yourself to do such a sophisticated move? Learning for a friend, of course. Zach, you want to show me that really quick?
Yeah. Just go stand over there for a sec. You just hear your whole ankle like spiral break.
I love watching Imanari roll videos.
Do you actually watch them sometimes?
It looks like someone breakdancing.
It does. It basically is. Breakdance into a broken ankle.
An outsider renames all of the Jiu Jitsu moves they can see.
What move is this, Dakota? Breakdancing shoulder break. What? So Imanari roll into a heel hook is an advanced move. Okay, so
make sure you're at my level or higher. at
yeah,
least.
like I would just be tapping already if you started a shoulder roll towards me. So my personal experience with Imanari rolling is very minimal because it leaves you a bit exposed, and I don't have enough training in attacking ankles like that. I'm more of a straight ankle lock kind of guy, but I know how to hit it. I know how to do it. I've seen it. I've tried it. You know, I mean, very minimal success with it, but I get the idea.
Yeah.
So it's like a shoulder roll to what's known as like an ashigarami, or I also heard it called as like a 411 position, basically a 50-50. It's kind of like a reverse De La Hiva. These are all kind of more advanced positions, but avoid, like, so if you were going into that position trying to attack a leg, is what you want to make sure you do is you avoid your legs being below theirs. So like I was thinking like my knee higher than theirs. So they're standing in front of you, open guard, you're on the bottom. Is anytime you're doing some sort of shoulder roll or inverted position, is you want to get your hips high into their hips. Like that's kind of an important part. If you're too low, it doesn't matter. but avoid feeding too deep also, like, because you have to underhook their leg to get some sort of connection to where you could roll under them. So, like, that has to be shallow, and you just got to kind of go for it. Like, that's kind of the idea here. But what I have been playing with more and more is with the lapel. So, like, on the gi, you got the two lapels coming down that crisscross, and then you tie your belt. I've been playing a lot with the lapel system, the lapel encyclopedia from Keenan Cornelius, and I absolutely love it. Like, it's just so good. It's like a whole nother system into jiu-jitsu, and, like, yeah, I love it. Been finding a lot of success with it, and it's just been really fun. But there are some really good leg attacks from the lapel system, which are a lot more conservative than as if you were just to do some gigantic Imanari roll.
Sure.
And get caught.
It would serve the same purpose as this move, but
a little safer.
Like more conservative.
More conservative and a lot more control of them. So, like, a foot under, like, so you have the lapel and then my foot's on it. Like, from there, it's easier to swivel on my back. Then you could kind of get inverted and start wrapping up the legs with, like, de la Rivas or reverse de la Rivas, single leg X positions. And that's been fun. So, like, I've been finding it's a lot easier to attack legs safely because anytime you're doing heel hooks and stuff like that and reaping the knee, like, people get nervous and, like, it's dangerous.
Sure.
It's super dangerous. That's why it's kind of more advanced moves. So anyways, the legs are there. Legs are there to attack. Danaher, one of his famous things is, why would you ignore 50% of the human body kind of thing. So that's kind of a fun topic to talk about sometimes because, like, a lot of submissions deal with hips up. Very rarely do you go down, like knee bars, things like that. They're not as common.
But they're just as dangerous.
Just as dangerous and, I mean, just as sophisticated. But there does come the question, is it practical for self-defense? For me to butt scoot towards you with donkey guard.
Imanari roll to someone who has a knife out.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, but if you blow their ankle apart, then I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd rather, my philosophy is anytime I'm an open guard on bottom is typically to sweep the person or try to get their back some way. So my whole BJJ mindset is get on top, stay on top, submit on top. So
my whole mindset is gain as much weight as I can, lay on top of them.
I saw this meme, this meme of a guy like that was sitting there like really chubby, big boy, bigger than you.
Yeah.
And he at the top it's like, when I get complimented for my jiu-jitsu cardio, and then it says me knowing that I'm just really good at stalling and sitting on people. I should tag you in it. Mr. Rodriguez, thank you for your question. It leads well, Dakota.
Yeah.
Into our topic of this podcast.
Bettering your BJJ Part 1.
Finishing the submission. So we're transitioning into a series, Dakota, all about bettering time on the mats. So today what we're going to discuss is finishing the submission. Okay, so we're going to kind of deconstruct what it means to submit somebody. How do you do it well? What are some troubleshooting things that may be hindering you from finding success from finishing your submissions or attempts? So Dakota, as a man who has been exposed to jiu-jitsu, you trained a little bit.
Yeah.
We talk about it. I mean, you're probably more knowledgeable about jiu-jitsu than the average Joe, for sure. But we kind of balance each other out with that. It's kind of a great dynamic between us. So what do you think in your mind are some keys to finishing the submission?
Yeah. So if there's one thing I know about jiu-jitsu, it's that if you learn the basics, you can learn everything else. And oftentimes, whenever you are presented with a problem in jiu-jitsu, you can bring it back to the basics. What am I doing wrong here? And so when I think about, finishing the submission, I think about bringing it back to the basics, and not only in moves but in mindset as well.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it too, because you could look at jiu-jitsu in very different ways. Whether it be physical, the mental side of it, philosophical, side of things, and it reflects a lot of life. Like, there's a ton of ways you could look at jiu-jitsu. And I actually asked the question on Facebook, and I got some pretty good responses. I just said, what are keys to finishing a submission? And there were some funny responses and a couple that I won't share on the podcast.
NSFW responses.
Beep, beep. No.
Rated R.
Rated R responses, which were pretty fair responses, actually. But, one of the comments reflected what you said about learning the basics. The basics, also known as fundamentals.
Yeah.
We at Imperial BJJ, an academy that I part own, we always have a fundamental class in the night, which of course is meant for the basics.
Sure.
But fundamentals, you could always work at them. But if you think basics and say if you're having a hard time, say if you're coming to the fundamentals class, instead, say if we named it basics class, but you're having a hard time with the basics, it might get very easy for you to get discouraged. But if you keep in mind that they're fundamentals, whether you're a brown belt or just starting, you and I always should be getting better at fundamentals.
Yeah, we can always benefit from that.
Always, 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 for sure. That's like your base.
I like to put the fun in fundamentals.
That's what we need you in class. You're just over in the corner.
Come on, guys.
Let's have fun.
Only 50 more inverted push-ups.
But, fundamentals don't actually sound that fun, honestly. They sound boring. They're not flashy.
And see, you're putting the mental into fundamental. Come on, Zach.
There's so many spheres here. They interlock like the Olympic rings, bro. But they are what should be your base. You can't do the Imanari roll to Ashigarami to reverse heel hook if you don't know how to maintain a closed guard. Like you cannot get to the flashy stuff successfully for the long run without knowing the fundamentals that need to be there to control somebody else.
Yeah.
So, you may find success with intent and timing, which is one of the comments that we had is like, a lot of people say position before submission. Okay, which is mainly true in my mind. Like it's pretty much there.
Yeah.
But one of the guys, a coach that I know, said, intent and timing may actually give you more success than position alone. Like position is not always necessary, which is actually true because you could do some sort of random submission on a guy if he's not prepared for it. Like I don't need to actually have a lot of control over you in order to pull it off.
Yeah.
Like flying arm bar, or something like that. You could just pull it off. But again, that's not always the case against every body type.
Sure.
Fundamentals will find success more than the whim submission you throw and just find
that
success
you
once.
learned a week ago.
Yeah, like the YouTube video that you watched and then tried at class, which is actually good. A lot of people hate on YouTube jiu-jitsu learning.
Yeah.
But it's okay if you have fundamentals to attach them to.
Right.
You can't just, watch some random YouTube video and then try it in class and then get discouraged.
Why are you breakdancing in front of us? Stop that.
You're like, Donaher said it was good. So the fundamentals are just super, super important. Do not neglect fundamentals in your training. Otherwise, you might get away with it, right? Like, again, there's always exceptions. But you will not, I'm thinking the long term, the endurance, the you actually growing and getting better will not happen unless you have those fundamentals to fall back on.
I think this is such a good point that you're making. And tying back into when you were talking about how you can look at jiu-jitsu as almost like a religion, some people do. Like they look at it as more of a way of life. These aspects and these points that we're making, I really feel like can be pointed towards life in general. Like your position doesn't have everything to do with life. Sometimes it's just timing and
that intent. And,
yeah.
And that was, it ties really well into a comment that Casey Park made. And he goes, a coach of mine, when I was young, told me, Casey, you know what, sometimes you need to just have a little bit more beep it in you, like screw it.
Yeah.
Like that's also very important in life too. Screw it. Just go. Just try it.
Yeah.
And that's why training is training. And that's why, it's so important also to leave your ego at the door. Mm-hmm. Because if you go into a training environment with your partners trying to prove something, already right there, you're going to have a hard time. you know,
You're going to break something.
because you may be too conservative, where you're not trying new things.
Okay.
Because you get it in your mind, but if I try these new moves I'm not good at, I
Yeah.
may fail and get submitted myself.
Yeah.
So that's the only way you get better.
Right.
You know, you gotta suck at it till you don't. We say that almost every episode. And you know, so that's part of it too. Is your training partner on the mat is your way to get better.
Yeah.
And it's their way to get better. Like, you're there for your partner.
That's
you
so
know,
good.
You can't be there to just totally hurt everybody.
Right.
Because then there's no training partners. That's a big part of this too. Is be willing to fail in these submissions. Like, say, here's one thing that I've learned is you cannot force a submission that isn't there either. It's like, so there's a thing called flow rolling.
Yeah.
Flow rolling gets a lot of hate sometimes because you're just kind of going a little slower. You're not actually going for a submission, but you're just kind of positional rolling without much resistance. But I have found that flow rolling has given me a lot greater understanding of being able to adapt to resistance.
Sure.
So, like, say if I'm in a side control position trying to, I don't know, get some sort of arm bar, but it's just not there, I can't get emotionally attached to the arm bar that I want to get. I need to be able to accept that it's not there and move on.
Yeah.
And that comes into this idea of control, right? I need to control my emotions and not get so hyped about the arm bar that was there 3 seconds ago that isn't there now.
Right.
And that reflects a lot of life as well, too. You know, you can't get so emotionally attached to something that is not there anymore.
Like, don't be focused on one specific thing. And if your life doesn't fit into that piece, it's going to all fall apart. Like, broaden your perspective a little bit more.
So the main point that I wanted to kind of answer in this idea of finishing the submission, or one of the biggest aspects, is control. Okay, so of course controlling your opponent, right? Kind of the progression of control would be going from the feet to the knees, the hips, to the upper body, you know, something like that, to where, especially in a self-defense situation, then I could control the person. You know, you're not going to gain much control out of an ashigarami if they have a knife, like you said, right? So that is kind of a progression of control, and that's
It's
why
the only move I know.
you keep hitting him, huh?
I learned it on YouTube.
You know, but there's a point system to jiu-jitsu tournaments. Like, I don't actually remember, but like 2 points if you pass, or like 2 points if you sweep. There's 4.
I didn't know that. I thought it was just all submission based.
Which is a lot purer rolling, but in the sport jiu-jitsu like IBJJF, like, you know, you could win from points. So that actually happens quite a bit. But some guys point roll and some guys submission roll. So, like, we emphasize always go for the submission.
Yeah.
You know, don't try to outpoint somebody. That's just lame. You know, and it's not real.
Yeah.
You know, like, even if you're behind on points, still go for the submission.
Right.
You know, you can't match points for points a lot of times, although that does happen. But having the mentality of submission, that's why some tournaments are submission only. It's way more fun to watch. So, because a guy's not just like passing and then
running away.
Like, yeah, it just kind of gets lame. But I get it. You know, it's part of the sport. That's how it's evolved.
Like, but that's more like fencing. Like,
Similar.
Just put the sword through his throat already.
Just kill him. So there's this progression of control. Now, to kind of fall back on the position before submission, that is kind of the concept there, is control. Now, I have been in a place before where I'm so eager to get the submission that my position and control is like just horrible.
Yeah.
And then you miss the submission. That's probably one of the main things, but it falls back on me, first of all, rather than not being able to control them, I'm not controlling me. And that's where I think in order to submit somebody else, you need to, first of all, submit yourself.
Yeah.
You know, you need to submit yourself to training. Like, you know, what are some keys to bettering your jiu-jitsu is just to walk through the door. You know,
Sure.
You know, you need to show up. Right? There's a kind of this, I saw this chart one time and it just kind of popped back in my mind of how to get good at something. And so it starts out with, I don't know what the index is, but it's like how happy you are and how better you are.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
your first day walking in the door, you're just absolutely thrilled, right? So you start really high, and then you learn how hard it is. So you're like, man, this kind of sucks. And then there's one more progression of you getting sadder, of like, man, everybody else might be getting better. You start to compare. That's usually where people quit.
Huh.
But you never know, the next class you would have gone to
Sure.
would have been the class where
breakthrough.
things clicked.
Yeah.
So don't give up on your training, because then you slowly get better, and try not to compare yourself to your other training partners,
Right.
because they're on a different journey than you. They maybe have been there longer than you've even been alive. Mm-hmm. So like that's you can't compare that way.
Right.
You kind of fall into a slippery slope, so to speak. So, but submitting yourself, right? Going to training, humbling yourself to positive and negative criticism. Both are good, because that's why we have coaches. That's why we have training partners who submit you. Go to class expecting to get submitted, right? Like that's a good thing. And all of these things in which incorporate you or encompass you being able to control your emotions, your ego. There's so much of it is you. That's why jiu-jitsu is so special. Is it's different for every person. It's not just, hey, show me this kata, and here's your next belt.
Right. It's not a cookie cutter.
That's why we don't do stripes. We don't do stripes at our academy, which is different. Not a lot of academies do that.
Yeah.
Because if you're stripe hungry, if you're belt hungry,
Point hungry, yeah.
you start to get cookie cutter, which makes jiu-jitsu not personal anymore.
Sure.
Like, okay, here's what you need to know to get your blue belt. Right? Like that's not.
Yeah. Let me fill in all the boxes.
It should be so much more personal than that.
Yeah.
Our biggest thing in you getting a blue belt is how's your
Sure.
defense. That's kind of the one big thing. How's your defense?
Yeah.
How are you grasping concepts?
Because it really is an art.
It really is.
When you look at art, you can't grade someone on you can't grade a Da Vinci versus a Pollock.
Right.
They're completely different art forms.
Yeah, that's a
because
great
they're
point.
completely different people.
That's a great point. And I think with the what's the word where it's become so mainstream? Like there's a lot of academies and people trying to enter into them. They've have curriculums. Curriculums have been developed, and it's good. There's structure.
Yeah.
But I think we've gotten almost too far, and this is kind of a generalized statement, but to where people are so eager to get their next stripe or their next belt that they're actually not spending time evaluating their own journey. Instead,
Yeah.
they're trying to mimic,
Sure.
rather than kind of spend this introspective time
Yeah.
discovering themselves.
In other words, don't be Cobra Kai. Be the Karate Kid.
There you go. Like here's a great point. Like if there were no stripes, if there were no belt system,
Okay.
would you still train? Like that's a
Is
great.
it still important for you
Yeah.
to learn?
Yeah, is it still important for you? Is it worth your time?
Yeah.
So like that's just these great self-evaluation questions. Why am I here? Why am I walking through the door? And it's worth it. It's worth training jiu-jitsu because it is for everybody. The guy who's 60 can still do jiu-jitsu just as much as the guy who's 18.
Right.
Just the guys who are 18 have capes on. And their joints are a little bit more elastic than the guy who's 60. But the guy who's 60 can still roll. He
Yeah.
can still do his thing. It just looks different.
Yeah.
That's why a cookie cutter belt system isn't right. I mean,
Sure.
it just doesn't quite. I mean, it works for some guys, but I just don't like it. I just leaves a sour taste in my mouth. So, anyways, in this idea of contributing to controlling yourself,
Yeah.
it's important to evaluate why you're there, what are you doing, and then you could kind of start applying that to your game.
So do you think the biggest battle for finishing the submission is a mentality of control?
I think it's definitely a big chunk.
Yeah.
Because there's some guys who have like super psycho egos who are just super strong who happen to get the guy who's training a lot.
Yeah.
So there's exceptions for sure. But in the long run, I keep kind of referring to the long run. If you're actually going to train for a long time, natural talent and strength will only get you so far. The guy with technique the guy who's on the mats, who's getting submitted, who's going back and forth, but he's committed. He's there.
Yeah.
That's the guy who I would put my money on every time.
Right.
So this idea of mental, evaluation and stuff, it has to start there. Mm-hmm. That's what I would say. It's a big chunk of it, but it's where you start. And if you're not there, you almost have to go back to it. It's something that you have to revisit really a lot of the time, like almost every day. Especially it reflects life. We've talked about that. It reflects life. It reflects even our relationship with God. Is you cannot lose focus of you. You know what I mean? Like your health. Because especially as we're in ministry, it's so easy to forget about you.
Sure.
Because you're taking care of others or, your service to others.
Sure.
But
that's probably the same thing, when you're rolling with someone, as you can often get in the mindset of just focusing on them, focusing on how to take them down offensively, and you lose track of where you are defensively.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true as well.
Like you're not taking care of your posture or anything. So all of a sudden you're open for attack.
Yeah, I've been there for sure. You're almost too eager to get them that you are out of position and aren't even worried about like your openings.
My ankle's right in front of their face.
Yeah. I'm trying to armbar him, but my neck's in his armpit. No wonder he's choking me. But again, at least you're there, right? So at least you're on the mat, you're rolling. Like at least you have something to work with. Then after, you have an understanding or at least an awareness. You're always working on that, right? Your mental health, all those kinds of things, being humble. That's a big part of it as well. Then you can start to apply your place of security to how to control somebody else. Mm-hmm. Self-control before you can control somebody else. And that is, I think, crucial to the scheme of things. Then you can start worrying about somebody else. And one thing, too, that I wanted to mention was, like, controlling your body. Of course, diet and things like that are important, but also the warm-ups, being able to do the fundamental moves that we talk about. You can't expect to control somebody else's body if you can't control your own. So, Dakota, that is my first thought. I mean, this is, again, just for me, what I've learned, my experience as a brown belt now for about a year, and, just training my whole life. I have found the journey is an amazing journey in martial arts because it does reflect life so much. Yeah. And there's so many truths that go back and forth. Mm-hmm. And they reflect each other a lot. And that's why our corporate name as Imperial BJJ is Truth LLC. Because, say, if you and I roll on the mats, we can learn from each other how your day was. Yep. The mats tell no lies. Like how experienced you are. Yeah. How mentally controlled you are. Yeah. Everything. From how emotional, how contained, how egotistic. Yeah. Or how disciplined. How much time have you had on the mats? How rusty are you if you haven't rolled? Like you could tell those things. How hesitant. Just so much when you roll with somebody, but only if you're slowed down enough to care. When you're singular focused, like you were saying, you could get caught off guard, you could get submitted, but also you miss out on the bond that's created with training partners. And that's where TFL Ministries has come into play, is because, when you and I are training on the mats for 4 hours with each other, with our partners, it's such a vulnerable bond, right? That is created to where these bridges are made, to
especially if you go no-gi.
Especially if you go no-gi. Talk about vulnerable, huh? But it goes back to like the Greek gladiator idea, these warriors who are helping each other get better, like that's the goal. Yeah. There's these bonds that are created that are strong enough to hold the weight of the gospel, and that's the mission of TFL, and that's my goal in anything. Is just to create bonds that are strong enough, for the gospel to go forward into that person's life. Yeah. If you have anything to add to the conversation about how to better finish submissions, we kind of talked about the philosophical side of things a little bit more, and how it starts inside your own mind, inside your own life. When that is submitted, you will find a lot more success in submitting others.
Yeah.
And that's a good place to start. So if you have anything to add to the conversation, please feel free to join us on patreon.com/TFL Ministries.
Do you love chicken wings but are tired of the same old mediocre standard of wing sauce? Step up your wing game with Wingredient. From 11 different flavors to choose from, their award-winning wing sauce mix is sure to delight your taste buds. It can be used on everything from wings to sushi and is customizable to your palate. Order today for your party, at home, or your restaurant. Experience what everyone is raving about. Wingredient.com, award-winning sauce and rub for wings and grub.
And his name is John C.
This week's walkout song is Libre, featuring Tommy Royal by KB. It's a great fighter song, super Spanish, has a sick beat, a great drop. Plus, it's part of my favorite fighter name, Nacho Libre, so extra points.
Is he your idol, your fight idol?
He is. Jack Black, just in general,
What if I told you I've only seen, like, the cereal scene?
I would say, how are you a fighter? It's the dictionary definition.
So sweet. No, don't leave it. I see you on the scene. Come with me. Just a
When you look into it,
you gotta look into it.
Look into it. When you look into it.
This episode's book of the week is Lead So Others Can Follow. Dakota, I've been reading this. I'm not done with it. I'm a little over halfway, and it's so good. I already knew it was worth adding in. And so the preview says this: the spiritual climate in our world is changing. Some churches seem increasingly powerless against the rise of cultural secularism and moral relativism. So how can you, as a leader, fight this oncoming tide of and revitalize your church? Lead So Others Can Follow offers practical leadership advice in a simple yet compelling format. Author Jim Bradford offers a unique, hand-picked set of principles and practices gleaned in his 30 years of personal ministry, such as how to develop a sustainable philosophy of leadership, practical tips on creating a Christ-honoring, people-centered ministry, and sections of spirituality, strategies, and stamina, and how to apply principles into your life and ministry. Let this book help you face the challenge to keep spirituality and biblical principles hardwired into your leadership.
This episode was brought to you by Next Generation Services, proudly serving Butte, Montana since 2017. Visit them at buttelandscapers.com.
The sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, Jesus Christ.
John 3:20 through 21. All who do evil hate the light and refuse to go near it for fear their sins will be exposed. But those who do what is right come to the light so others can see that they are doing what God wants.
Dakota, that's all we got.
That's all she wrote.
We hope everyone has had a great day. We'll be back for Cross Choke Plus next week. Thank you to all of our Purple Belt patrons, such as the baby-faced assassin, Isaiah Rodriguez,
The Jackhammer, Jacob Duran.
and the big gallon jug, Louis Lopez.
And we will catch you next time.
Next time.
Thank you so much for listening to Season 3 of Crosschoke. It was a blast creating this episode, and we hope you enjoyed listening. Feel free to follow Zach at Ando Butte and myself at South for a Day. Have a phenomenal day, and join us next time on Crosschoke. What? What does that even mean?
I don't know. My water was sitting next to me, and
Is that the one the hill you're dying on?
the big gallon jug.
Yes. Yes. Even coupons. Imperial BJJ. You can't handle the truth.
Now we're talking. Submission winning?
Or what if
What if?
you said,
Oh,
or I said the first part and before the dash, and you said the second part after the dash.
okay.
You want me to say the first part?
Isn't that what you just said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, you ready?
Yeah.
Yeah. 1 second.
You good? Yeah, take it. Just doing a line of cocaine. Oh.
You like that?
No.
How about this?
That's okay.
Oh, really? How about this?
What if it just pours down your chest?
Pour it on the microphone.
How about this one?
How about this? Yeah, I don't like that. How about this?
Now I have to finish the chip. I didn't think of that.